In downtown Austin, Texas, the night shimmered with energy. A luxury restaurant, known for its soft jazz and candlelit tables, hummed with quiet conversations and the clinking of wine glasses. At a corner window seat, Ethan Cole, the 35-year-old CEO of a fast-growing tech company, sat with his usual air of quiet dominance. He was the kind of man who measured time in results, not emotions. His tailored suit, sleek watch, and calculated glances all reflected years of discipline. As he checked his phone, scanning through unread emails, he sighed impatiently. Blind dates weren't his thing, but his sister had insisted, saying he needed someone real in his life. He smirked at the thought. In his world, real didn't exist anymore. The door opened, and a soft chill swept into the restaurant. When Ethan looked up, his brows lifted slightly. A woman stood there, glancing nervously around. Her dress was faded, her shoes worn, and her hair loosely tied back as if she hadn't planned to impress anyone. The hostess looked uncertain, as if wondering whether the woman had entered the wrong place. But Lila Monroe simply smiled, a little shyly, and said she was meeting Ethan Cole. A few customers turned to stare, whispering behind their menus. Ethan felt an odd curiosity rise in him. This wasn't the kind of woman who usually showed up for men like him. When she sat down, the contrast between them was startling. His polished world and her simple presence seemed to belong to two different universes. But when Lila began to speak, everything else faded. Her voice was soft but confident, carrying a kind of quiet truth. She told him about her small nonprofit in Arizona, how she helped Native American children who were forgotten by society, many living without food, school, or safety. She didn't dramatize it or ask for sympathy. She simply described the reality, the faces of children she had met, the stories that broke her heart but pushed her to keep going. Ethan listened, at first out of politeness, then out of genuine interest. Her passion wasn't loud, it was steady, pure, and deeply human. The waiter approached to refill their glasses, and Ethan noticed something he rarely did: he wasn't bored. Lila wasn't trying to impress him, she wasn't impressed by him either. She asked questions that cut deeper than usual small talk. Do you ever feel like success isolates you? What would you do if your money couldn't fix something? Ethan found himself without rehearsed answers. For once, he spoke honestly, about his father's death, his work obsession, and the emptiness that came with achievement. The conversation shifted from surface to soul, and hours slipped by unnoticed. Outside, the rain began to fall, tracing silver lines across the windowpane. When the check came, Ethan didn't want the night to end. But Lila smiled and said gently, "You don't have to pretend to be someone for me. Just be human." She stood, thanked him for dinner, and walked out into the rain without an umbrella. Ethan sat there for a long time, watching her silhouette disappear into the misty streetlights. The sound of rain mixed with the fading jazz in the background, and for the first time in years, he felt something stir, a sense of humility, a longing to understand life beyond luxury and power. He didn't know it then, but the woman who had arrived looking like she had nothing would soon change everything he believed about value, compassion, and purpose. 4 days later, the Texas skyline had long vanished behind him. Ethan Cole's sleek black SUV sped across the endless stretch of northern New Mexico, where red dust met an ocean of blue sky. He wasn't here for pleasure, he had a meeting with investors about a renewable energy site. Yet something about the desert's silence pressed against his thoughts. The emptiness made him remember Lila, her calm eyes, her stories of the forgotten children in Arizona. For the first time in years, his business trip didn't feel like progress, it felt like escape. The road shimmered under the heat, and Ethan rolled down the window, letting the dry wind sting his face. The highway curved near a cluster of broken rocks, and that's when he saw it, a small figure near the ditch. At first, he thought it was an abandoned bundle or trash, but instinct made him slow down. As the car approached, his heart thudded. It was a boy, barefoot, thin as a shadow, wrapped in a torn blanket. The child's lips were cracked, his eyes half open but vacant. Ethan's stomach dropped. He slammed the brakes, rushed out, and knelt beside him. "Hey, kid, hey, you're safe now," he whispered, his voice trembling. The boy tried to move but collapsed back into Ethan's arms. Without a second thought, Ethan lifted him gently, carried him into the car, and sped toward the nearest town, whispering prayers he didn't even know he remembered. At the hospital in Santa Fe, the nurses rushed to help. Doctors confirmed the child was Apache, severely dehydrated and malnourished. They didn't know how long he'd been alone. Ethan stayed in the hallway for hours, pacing, refusing to leave until they said he was stable. When he was finally allowed in, he sat by the bed, watching the boy breathe through the oxygen mask. There was something hauntingly fragile about him. Ethan reached out and placed a hand on the boy's arm. The child flinched, then slowly relaxed. Day after day, Ethan returned to that hospital room, bringing small toys, soft blankets, and even reading aloud children's books he bought from a nearby store. The staff began to smile when he walked in. They called him the man who couldn't walk away. On the 5th day, the boy finally smiled, a faint, uncertain smile that felt like a sunrise. Ethan didn't understand why that single expression hit him so deeply, but it did. It was as if something inside him, long dormant, had come back to life. He began making calls to child services, to Lila's nonprofit, determined to ensure the boy wouldn't vanish back into neglect. That night, for the first time in years, Ethan prayed before sleeping. It wasn't a prayer for success, or wealth, or luck. It was for that nameless boy, for safety, for belonging, for love. Then, one quiet morning, a soft knock echoed through Ethan's front door. When he opened it, he froze. 3 Apache women stood outside, their expressions full of emotion. One held a worn photograph of the boy. The oldest woman, her gray hair braided neatly, stepped forward. Her eyes glistened as she whispered, "You saved our blood. We will never forget this." Ethan's throat tightened. The women embraced him, and for a moment, the world felt perfectly still. The desert wind carried their gratitude, wrapping around him like a blessing. In that moment, Ethan realized something profound. True wealth wasn't what he built, owned, or achieved. It was the quiet act of saving someone no one else saw. Sometimes, the people who seem to have nothing are the ones who teach us what truly matters: humanity, compassion, and the power of a single choice.